At the beginning of stage 3 of La Vuelta 2017, there is a neutral start. Not a lot of people know this because people watch the end mainly because that's probably the most exciting part. But there's a neutral start, which means that you can't race. That's why it's neutral. So the riders roll out, and for a few kilometers they just ride. And there's a car leading them. In this case, it's a red car, and the riders ride around it so that often when the race actually officially starts and the car zooms up ahead, they wave the flag, then riders will attack immediately. That happens, I'd say, maybe a third in Grand Tours. A third of the time there's an attack at the beginning, the very beginning, at kilometer 0 of the race. Today, what I thought was really great is that there were a crowd of riders swarming the car, and it's because they were so enthusiastic to get the race underway and they wanted to break. You could tell that, and it was quite funny because they were just so keen, and it got to the point where the driver in the car was putting his hand out and flapping it, which is the symbol for slow down, you bums. So it was great to see that enthusiasm and to have this kind of curious moment where the race organizer was saying slow down to these over-enthusiastic chasers, breakaway riders. And of course, who's at the front? Thomas de Gendt, the guy who spent the most time attacking in the Tour de France 2017 by a long way. He was on pretty much every break, it felt like. Realistically, about 60% probably of serious breaks Thomas de Gendt was present for. Olé! For this painting, I'm actually doing a live stream on Instagram, which is at Captain Smith Design, if you don't already know it. Every day, I'm going to try and put something live on, whether it's an actual full painting or whether it's just the little stories they put on there, the little videos. I wanted to make an awesome picture for him to show the way I see him, I suppose, as a really aggressive, brave rider. And I want to show that appreciation for him in this. I rarely add these little splodges, this kind of schoolboy trick of holding your finger still and then thwacking the pen loaded up with ink onto the finger so it flicks the paint out. I rarely do that because it's so easy to overdo, and so many artists I see overdo it, where the splodges become more of a thing than the painting. And I think it's okay as a kind of supplement and to add something like action. So for this, I hope that it adds a little bit of movement without distracting too much. But when you're thinking about the paint splodges and thinking, oh, that's cool, it's a paint splodge, I think that's when it overdoes it. It's almost like artists use it as like a, aren't I cool? Who cares? Whack, whack again. You know. It's a bit. I imagine it's like a Julia Roberts film in the 80s when they have an artist and they portray him in the film as being this wacky type who chucks paint around and is really expressive man. Sorry. I must sound ridiculous to some people. Sorry. Yes, well. This one I'm painting right now is just a really great Tour of Spain image. I think you can tell a lot by the colours of a country. There are little things as well, which I often like to play this game when I was in Russia tutoring. I would look at a street and say to myself, okay, if I was plonked here with no warning, how would I work out what is what? And how would I work out where I am? And it would be things like the wires, the pylons, the radio, whatever they're called, the telephone pylons, the amount of cars, the type of cars, the road paving stones, the width of the pavement, the architecture, the colour of the sky, the colour of the trees, the pigeons, the cleanliness of the pigeons, you know, all that stuff would let you know where you are. And similarly, I think if you see a random shot of road, not all the time, but there's a good chance you can tell whether it's Italy, Spain or France if it's in a Grand Tour. And I want to bring out the colours, the expanse of Spain, and the quality of the road as well. That's quite important, especially in racing. Whether there's a barrier on the road, how big the gutter is on the road, whether the road goes straight to grass, whether it goes into pavement, whether it goes into rubble, gravel, mud, how wide the mud is, all that sort of stuff I think is important. So it might seem like an innocuous painting and not really consequential at all, but actually for me this is kind of like just a little idiosyncratic stage of the Tour of Spain, as well as having the clouds. That's another thing you can distinguish by. The Giro d'Italia, Tour de France, and the Vuelta a España are three similar grand tours, and they're 3 weeks, and they're like tours of the country. They are different, however. I won't go through all the differences, but one of them that maybe as a watcher who's painting, I picked out, is that the camera angles are quite different in the Vuelta. It feels like they try to make the racing cinematically more exciting by giving you low camera angles, more close-ups of the riders, and more interesting shots in the sense that they will shoot something through the windscreen of one of the bikes, the camera bikes. They will shoot something through the windscreen of a car. They'll go low down to kind of shoe level. They will pan across the shoes, that level, and get lots of close-ups from below as well. So like from waist to up to chin, so with the sky behind. And that you don't really get in the Tour de France especially, which is a slightly more conservative cinematic event. This one I'm currently painting is of Villela, I think his name's David Vieira, and Geniez, who's a French rider, I can't remember his first name, who rides for Bardet. These guys are the last remainder of the breakaway, and the guy at the front, Vieira, he knows they're going to get caught, but they're still riding nevertheless. I'm really happy with this painting. Also, a little trick that I'm going to divulge here is that when you have a painting, if you want to add more depth, plonk in these really big shadows that I'm doing now. They just make it all look really 3D, and it's kind of like a little trick actually, which I'm not usually a fan of because they can be, in the wrong hands they can be used badly, but I think they're in the right hands. Alright, thank God the flow state is continuing, guys. Update on the flow state. And I'm drawing Chris Froome and Esteban Chavez, as far as I know, who a lot of my followers on Instagram have told me to draw, so he's on the radar. I'm paying attention to him. I should have been doing it before, but I can't cover everything. And Chris Froome, who has liked one of my tweets, thank you Chris Froome, is doing amazingly. He's attacking on the final part of the stage and really making a show of it. He's actually going for it. And what I thought was brilliant is that he hadn't exhausted all his teammates. He still had domestiques, but he was like, nope, I'm feeling this is right. I want to go. The other guys look weak. I think I'm strong. And I think, actually, this is my personal insight, I think he likes to deal a psychological blow as early as he can on all the tours that he tries to win. And he really, really goes for it. He doesn't do this thing which a lot of riders tend to do, both in stages and the whole race, of saving up for the end. I really like his dynamic approach where he goes early. Maybe he then recovers a little bit and then goes hard at the end as well. But he definitely goes hard early, which is really cool. And I think you see it in the Tour last year and 2016. Sorry, don't hold me to this, but I think it's 2016 more. The riders just looked dejected. They looked like they didn't want to be there. And I think that was because Chris Froome actively does that. He knows how to play the game. He doesn't show too much emotion. He doesn't show when he's feeling knackered. Yes, this is Chris Froome. Tribute to him. Again, more splashes. I'm trying not to go over top. I'm trying to add to the dynamism of the picture. Nothing more than that. Here we go. I'm currently drawing Vincenzo Nibali, who amazingly won the stage today. What did he was attacked by Froome. In the previous painting you saw that. Froome, I salute you. Great effort. And on the downhill, Nibali is really good on downhill. And he managed to catch up a little bit. And on the final part of the race, which was a flat, there was a climber's sprint. And Froome was coming up behind. Froome went out first, actually. He led out the sprint really quite strongly. He wanted to do it early, like sort of 400, 500 meters. And then he looked like he was going to get away. They caught up. The pack caught up. And then there was a kind of more of a group forming. Then Nibali comes around the left-hand side and really starts clattering around on his bike, clanging like I love. I love it when you can see their bodies sort of shaking in their seats and rattling because they're trying so hard. They're holding onto the handlebars and they're really using the momentum of pulling on the handlebars, and their head goes up and down, their whole body goes for it. And he did that. He wished to cross the line, but having had all that sort of lack of composure, he then looks behind, and I think he'd been planning this celebration for ages, because you could see he looked behind loads of times to see if he had time to do the shark celebration. Then he puts his hand over his his helmet to do the Shark of Messina celebration, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Probably my favourite moment of the tour so far, actually. Today was definitely the best day for me. I think actually Chris Froome attacking so early and so viciously was my favourite. This is my favourite comedy moment. Vincenzo Nibali, thank you for that piece of fun. He liked one of my tweets, which I need to boast about more. I will hopefully put up a picture now of proof, just so you know I'm not talking out my rear end. For me, that was the most exciting stage so far. Chris Froome really showing his hand and trying to melt his opposition psychologically. Vincenzo Nibali, older than some of the other guys, probably more experienced, less meltable in the brain section. So he managed to actually fight back and get the moral win. It wasn't a kind of, oh, thank God I won. Not the moral victory. It was he maintained his psychology, because I think if someone won who felt they could be beaten, they wouldn't do that celebration. But I think Vincenzo Nibali showed his kind of psychological prowess and strength by actually celebrating. It shows that he's like, yeah, you know I got it, as opposed to, oh my God, I can't believe I won. Yes! So this is the general classification movements. Froome gets red. Barguil, poor Barguil, he slips back a long, long way. Nibali gets some more time, gets time bonuses. Oh, who's just coming in? It's bloody Chavez it is. He's 11 seconds behind Froome, so 1 behind Nibali. Contador out the back door, Contador. Aru 38 seconds back on Froome, and Bardet 48 seconds back on Froome.
¡Viva España! ¡Vamos, Contador! ¡Vamos!
Go Froome! Froome, Froome, Froome!
Allez, Bardet! Bardet, allez!
Forzaro! Forza, Forzaro! Dai, dai, dai! Ole!